I've been playing the crap out of Tales of Arise, still not finished, but it's a fantastic game. Another fantastic game is Fire Emblem Three Houses, which will be the focus for our newest banner in Fae. If you've only played the base game, you may not recognize some of these characters, and that's because they are the Ashen Wolves, who were a part of the Cindered Shadows DLC. If you want to learn more about Cindered Shadows, maybe purchase it. I do have a video about what it includes. In Fae, this banner will feature Constance, Hapi, and Yuri from the Ashen Wolves. Tagging along will be Muspell, not from Three Houses, but from the current Ice and Flame Tempest plotline in Fae. The last Ashen Wolf is Balthus, who is not featured on the banner, but is being instantly demoted into the 3 to 4 star pool. Additionally, if you log in right now, you will get 1 free 5-star copy, so be sure to do that. We'll be talking about everyone's stats, skills, and playstyles, and we'll talk about Balthus at the very end. First up is Constance. She brought the Dark Flyer class to 3 houses, and in Fae she will be a red flying mage. For stats, Constance has 39 HP, 42 attack, 40 speed, 19 defense, and 29 resistance. She's not the fastest red flying mage, although with her weapon, I think she might be. 42 base attack will also tie Crusader Julia, who set the record not even 2 weeks ago. Constance will have attack and speed super boons, so you can pick your favorite. Pretty clear that she's all about offense, and boy is she bringing the pain. For old skills, Constance will have Harsh Command Plus to help all her allies. Her A skill is Attack and Speed Push 4, and she has Speed and Res Rain for maximum offensive pressure. For her weapon, Constance gets Agni's Arrow. It will be a 14 tome that grants a flat +3 speed. If Constance initiates combat or is within 2 spaces of an ally, she gets +6 attack and speed, and neutralizes effects that prevent her follow-up attacks. She then gets another effect depending on if it's an odd or even turn. If it's an odd turn, neutralize speed and res field buffs on the foe. If it's an even turn, neutralize attack and speed debuffs on Constance. So, overall, Agni's Arrow is pretty solid for an offensive weapon. Without worrying about the odd or even turn shenanigans, Constance gets more attack and speed and partial follow-up, which is becoming quite common for all offensive units. Flyers can't get no follow-up, and range flyers cannot use flow refresh, so having no follow-up on her weapon is great. Her initiations won't be stopped unless you outspeed her, and she's packing a ton of speed. Additionally, you can also neutralize the foe's speed and defense or speed and res field buffs, or get rid of penalties on Constance. The odd/even turn mechanic is a reference to Constance's sort of mood swings, I guess you could say, and her personal skill in game. For inheritable skill, Constance will bring attack and speed Far Trace 3. This enables Kanto remaining and inflict -3 attack and speed on the foe during combat. The Kanto skill for ranged cavaliers and flyers, this one is focusing on attack and speed debuffs. Constance doesn't really have any defensive abilities, so she'll take the extra bit of protection, and the speed debuffs are great for those speed battles. As a reminder, Far Trace won't proc Kanto if the user has 0 remaining movement. If they were to get danced, then Kanto can still activate. For the most part, Constance is pretty much ready to roll. She has a bunch of attack and speed and partial follow-up, so if she doesn't die in one counterattack, then you have to match her speed to not get doubled. Personally, I think attack and speed catch is just better than push 4. You can keep her Far Trace and rain variants, but you could swap some around whether you wanted to stack more speed and res debuffs or more attack and speed debuffs. For Sacred Seals, take your pick of the usual, so Sparrow, attack and speed solo, or Blade Session. If you wanted, you could then run Desperation if Kanto isn't really important. You could also add more defensive skills like attack and defense catcher solo or sturdy impact. Agni's Arrow can proc on either phase, so I would try to use a mixed phase skill. Takaran's Menace can also be used, but Speed and Res Rain is just fine to keep. Honestly, Constance should perform just fine. The auto even turn effects can matter, but Constance gets the most important skills without worrying, namely no follow-up. Survivability is probably the main concern, especially without desperation for multiple engagements. If she stays untouched though, well, have fun. Next up we have Hapi, who brought the Valkyrie class to 3 houses. She will be a Blue Mage Cavalier, which is a highly contested group, but Hapi has some very fun abilities. Her stats will be 40 HP, 42 attack, 26 speed, 16 defense, and 39 resistance. Hapi will have attack and res super boons, both which will be fine, but you may want the extra +4 attack. I believe 42 base attack will be the new highest out of all blue mages in the game. Now for old skills, Hapi has Glimmer, which is great for high attack mages. She then has attack and res Far Trace 3, another Kanto skill focusing on attack and res debuffs. For her weapon, Hapi has a Demonic Tome. This is a 14 tome and pays homage to Hapi's personal skill, which made her attacks effective against monsters. In Fae, that translates to effective against dragons and beast foes, so Brave Eliwood's got a partner in crime. Demonic Tome will also accelerate specials, and at the start of the turn, if Hapi's special is at its maximum value, she gets -1 special cooldown. Last, if she has more than 25% HP, she gets +6 attack and res during combat. So, Demonic Tome will be another rather simple weapon that just works. It's effective against dragons and beasts, it accelerates specials, grants more attack and res, and it gives Hapi times pulse. This is a very scary weapon. Cavs can get times pulse normally, so that's a unique perk, and also is deadly with accelerate specials. If you really hate dragons or beast units, Hapi can in fact pre-charge Ruptured Sky immediately, and you'll get the extra damage. That said though, Glimmer can scale just as high because Hapi stacks so much attack with effective damage, and it probably outdamages Ruptured Sky for the most part. Either way, someone is taking a 2 Conan special to the face immediately, and if you're a dragon or beast foe, then you're just going to take even more damage. For inheritable skill, Hapi brings attack and res catch 4 to the game, only a matter of time for this variant to show up, and it's great for Hapi who already has high base attack and res stats, and she gets even more from her weapon. As a refresher, catch skills grant plus 7 attack and res if the foe has 100% HP, or if they have a penalty on them. If they meet both conditions, you get another plus 2, and that equals plus 9 in total. You meet full HP foes quite often, so you can get plus 7 attack and res on either phase with no positioning worries. Catch skills are only for Cavaliers and Flyers, but they are definitely great options. Like Constance, Hapi is pretty much set already, you just need a C skill. She's mainly going to go for a one-shot playstyle with a pre-charge Glimmer, and Demonic Tome does all the work pretty much. The Fartray skills grant another -3 res, and Hapi has attack and res catch for extra stats. For C skills, you could go with Rouse Attack and Res from Spring Soleil, or Res Ploy since she has really high base resistance. You can also just continue stacking attack and res with the new attack and res solo Sacred Seal, but otherwise Hapi's just fine with something like Death Blow. If you don't need Kanto, low attack and res is superior to get rid of res field buffs on the foe, and another C skill option is attack and res menace, although it doesn't cover the full attack range of a mage cav. As mentioned, you can use Ruptured Sky for beast and dragon foes, but Hapi already has the effectiveness multiplier, and Glimmer can potentially outdamage it. The main reason you may want so much extra damage is obviously the colorless armored beast unit who should not be named, but is very tanky and has 40% damage reduction on their first attacks. I'm not sure if Hapi easily wins that battle, but I believe she has a chance depending on bonus HP amounts. Now let's talk about some other things Hapi can do. Interestingly, because of her high base res and res boosting skills, she sort of counters Dragon Wall since it does a res check. That's another bonus for Dragon Slaying. If you want an even higher special cooldown, Hapi can use other effects like Quicken Pulse or units like Legendary Hector or Pent who can give her more special cooldown. That would allow her to run things like Iceberg, Glaciers, or Astra on turn 1, maybe for a defense team that could be fun. While Hapi isn't especially fast, she does have a lot of resistance, which means she can sort of function as a mage tank. She can tank their hits and reply with a Glimmer of her own. Last, if you really wanted, you could go for a speed build. Obviously it's very expensive, but it would give Hapi a bit more of a fallback in the case of not getting one-shots. Overall, Hapi certainly will be scary with her long-range instant charge specials initiations. She doesn't need much to be effective, and dragons and beast units will want to stay far away from her at any time. Our third Ashen Wolf is Yuri, who is sort of the leader of this merry gang. Yuri introduced the Trickster class into 3 houses and is one of my favorite in terms of animations because while casting magic, the Trickster does finger guns at the enemy. It is probably more associated with swords and daggers though because it does require a thief certification. Yuri will be a colors dagger unit in Fae with some crazy stats. He has 40 HP, 39 attack, 43 speed, 26 defense, and 29 resistance. He's basically a Gen 6 version of Layla, and that comparison doesn't just end at high attack and speed stats. Yuri will also have a speed super boon, so if you want to go fast, that's a nice bonus. For old skills, Yuri will also have Glimmer as a special and the actual times pulse C skill. Like Hapi, Yuri's Honorable Blade accelerates specials, so he can also pre-charge Glimmer as well. This 14-minute weapon then has a couple more fun skills. It gives Yuri Kanto 2, which is notable as a ranged infantry unit. To abuse Kanto, Yuri also gets 1 extra movement, just at all times, pretty much like Brave Olm. Last, if the foe has 150% HP, Yuri gets plus 6 attack and speed during combat. So generally speaking, this is a pretty easy to understand weapon. Combat wise, Yuri just gets faster specials and plus 6 attack and speed, which is relatively basic in today's game. Yuri is kinda just depending though on his high attack and speed stats to get the job done, which can work, but it's effects and abilities that can really make a unit shine. What Yuri does have is crazy mobility. Kanto 2 with 3 movement is kinda nutty, and we'll talk about it more in a bit because Yuri has one more unique skill. The Trickster class's combat art is Foul Play, and it gets its own version in Fae. Basically, you just swap spaces with an ally, except this skill has a 3 space range. First off, Foul Play is not inheritable, only Yuri gets it for now. As mentioned, this is really just a 3 range swap, and that is powerful with Yuri's weapon. First off, he has 3 movement, and he can move first before using Foul Play. After he swaps, With an ally, Yuri then procs Kanto too, so he can move even more afterwards. There is an insane amount of playmaking potential with this skill, and Yuri has the extra mobility perks to really make it shine. It's very hard to talk about how good foul play can be without just getting to use it. The main thing though is that it all comes down to execution. You can use foul play defensively or offensively, and I'm pretty sure the AI is going to have a field day with this skill. For his new inheritable skill, Yuri will bring colorless dual infantry form, another tier 4 arena scoring skill, this one obviously for colorless infantry units. You got daggers, bows, staffs, dragons, or beast units. If you want to get more arena score with some extra stats, then this is the A skill for you. Now, back to the interesting kit of Yuri, he basically replicates the playstyle that he has in 3 houses. He uses the Trickster's Foul Play extremely well with his Hero's Relic because he gets another move after swapping, which is basically Kanto. He also has the extra movement, and that's a big factor in the smaller Mass of Fey, especially for a ranged unit. Combat-wise, Yuri just brings a lot of attack and speed with faster specials and times pulse. He can pre-charge 2 cooldown specials, but you may want a combative B skill like no follow-up or a low skill. Besides just stacking more attack and speed stats, Yuri's strength definitely comes from foul play's playmaking along with Kanto. For example, you could use foul play with a Link B skill buff. You can either swap Yuri in or swap an ally closer to the enemy and buff both units. Yuri can also move 3 spaces and then swap within 3 spaces, so you can do a lot of crazy stuff. The most common tactic will be to have an ally attack first, then Yuri foul plays them to safety, and then he uses Kanto to retreat backwards. You can also do the opposite where Yuri moves first, then foul plays to safety while putting an ally up in front. Now, besides foul play, having Kanto 2 also makes Yuri pretty fun. He can run Disarm Trap to attack an enemy or structure, then move away. He can also run Kanto with Wind or Water Sweep to attack safely, apply dagger debuffs, and maybe even something like Savage Blow, then retreat. That would be pretty annoying. Obviously, you can use any smoke debuffs on top of dagger debuffs for some fun. In terms of more oddball tactics, you could try close counter with Yuri. He doesn't really get any defensive effects from his weapon, but he can probably tank at least one hit just fine. He could then be pretty annoying with something like Vantage and his pre-charge Glimmer, or maybe you could run Miracle. All in all though, Yuri just has great attack and speed, but he's somewhat basic in terms of offensive abilities. Like I mentioned, he's pretty similar to Layla in that regard, and their real playmaking comes from their mobility shenanigans, which you have to get creative with. For Yuri, the real terror is obviously going to be with Dancer support. He could use foul play with an ally after they attack, and then the ally can get danced for another action. Meanwhile, Yuri isn't just out in the open because he has Kanto. He really does have a tricky playstyle, and that's going to go both ways when you're using him and when you're facing him. Last unit on the banner is Muspell. We got a sneak peek at what he can do from the previous Tempest Trials, but now he has a full kit. Reminder, like Niffle, he's not actually a mythic hero. Muspell is going to be a red cavalry dragon, and for stats he has 40 HP, 41 attack, 16 speed, 39 defense, and 37 resistance. He's rocking that Dusel stat line and has attack and defense super boons. For old skills, Muspell has Rally Up Attack Plus for team boss, and he has Dragon Wall for damage reduction. It's very weird to see a cavalry unit with a damage reduction B skill, but thanks to being a dragon, Muspell makes it happen. For his weapon, he has Flame Like Breath, which I don't believe has changed from the Tempest Trials. It grants a flat +3 attack, so that puts Muspell at a healthy 60 total attack. At the start of combat, if he has more than 25% HP, he then gets another +5 to all stats, and basically he has Fatal Smoke 3. What this means is that the foe cannot recover HP during or after combat, and afterwards you inflict deep wounds on the target and allies within 2 spaces. As a reminder, deep wounds is a status that prevents healing. So this is another relatively simple weapon. It really just gives Muspell extra stats, and if they can heal, then Fatal Smoke does its job. To be honest, Fatal Smoke is nice, but Muspell is kind of just a big stat ball. He doesn't really make great use of his 3 cavalry movement, and doesn't have free follow-ups like Duso, nor prevents follow-up attacks like a usual slow tank. Now, he does have a unique C skill called Domain of Flame. It grants +4 attack and defense to allies within 2 spaces and gives them the effect if unit's attack is greater than the foe's res during combat. Unit's first attack deals extra damage equal to 30% of unit's attack minus foe's res. Like with Niffle, if Muspell is near any ally, he also gains these same benefits. So, Domain of Flame is the opposite to Niffle's unique skill. Muspell gives himself and allies extra damage for 1 hit. This is basically just an extra 30% damage for magic-based units because they're already targeting resistance. For physical damage units though, this can get them a decent bump if they're facing a high defense but lower res foe. As an example, if Muspell has 60 attack and the foe has 30 res, you just do 60 minus 30, that is 30 damage, and 30% of that is 9. This is sort of like an AoE special where Triangle Advantage is not included, except Domain of Flame takes into account in combat buffs, so you don't have to run something like Life and Death. In general, this should just be free damage. However, since we're checking res stats, the high res units like Hapi can effectively ignore this skill. At the very least, Muspell and allies still get plus 4 attack and defense. For his inheritable skill, Muspell brings ARD, defense from is 4. It's funny that our 2 should be mythic units bring the new tier 4 Aether Raids only skills. As usual, this one gives more stats the more defense structures are up. They're not bad, but it depends on your defense map since you wouldn't want to put your structures in range of easy attacks. If you want this skill with Muspell's other skills though, the tier 3 version is only on 1 5-star only unit, so good luck with that. Overall, Muspell's kind of a weird unit. He's certainly unique as a tanky dragon cavalry unit, but through movement doesn't really do much for him when he doesn't have speed to double, nor does he have free follow-up attacks. Attacking may also put him out of range of Domain of Flame from activating, and cavalry units just don't have the best tank skill options. You can just stack defense and res with Muspell and try to rely on Dragon Wall for damage reduction and outlast the enemy with Fatal Smoke. If you want to double, then well, you're going to need quick riposte. As a typical high stat slow unit, you could run distant counter, but to keep more stats from maybe Dragon Wall, you could run a catch skill. We now have attack and res catch, and defense and res catch is an option. If you don't care for Dragon Wall, you can go with a low B skill, although Kanto Near Trace is available. I wouldn't really think it's spectacular though. I think the general idea behind Muspell in Aether Raids is to just be super tanky and provide your team with Domain of Flame's extra damage and rally attack buffs. Not really sure if that's going to be a popular strategy for defense, but maybe gets your team a KO. If you want to go for more support capabilities, you can use Rally Up Attack with a Ruse B skill. Obviously less survivability for Muspell himself, but the annoying debuffs may be worth it. In general though, just kind of a strange unit, and Cavalry Dragon typing doesn't really do much for him. He is at the mercy of all the recent Cavalry or Dragon slaying killers, including Hapi, Annie Micaiah, Brave Erica, Brave Eliwood, or Brave Alm. Just not the best timing. Last, let's talk about Balthus more. The King of Grappling doesn't grapple because we have no gauntlets in Fae. Balthus introduced the Warmon class and he had the Gauntlet Heroes Relic. Sadly, he's going to get the short end of the stick this time, but he will be in the 3 to 4 star pool, so you could maybe get him at any point. Balthus will be an X infantry unit and it will have 47 HP, 42 attack, 24 speed, 37 defense, and 31 resistance. Balthus wants to join his fellow wolves with an attack and speed super boon. 42 attack is second highest for X infantry, so that's notable, and 47 HP is pretty high in general. Balthus is sort of like the Gen 6 version of Mustafa or Kalik as a slower unit, but with pretty good defense and res, especially for an X unit. He won't be crazy, but Balthus should work just fine. For old skills, Balthus is going to bring Ignis, Brazen Attack and Defense, and Close Guard, nothing that crazy. I believe Brazen Attack and Defense is supposed to make Balthus' personal skill in 3 houses. Balthus will also have a new weapon, the Instant X Plus, which is inheritable. It has 14 might, and if the unit initiates combat, grant plus 4 attack and defense, and prevent a foe's follow-up attack. We have an Instant Lance, and both are borrowing effects from the 2020 Valentine's weapons. These are player phase only weapons with basically a mini sturdy impact effect. You can use them on slower units to prevent enemies from doubling them when they initiate, but as usual, faster, quicker post users and no follow-up can ignore this. If you want survivability, then they're not terrible, but generally speaking, it's not the craziest inherent bikes out there. In general, Balthus is going to be our most recent version of the slower Axe Infantry archetype. If you want to use Instant Axe, maybe try it with solo skills, that way you get the stat bonuses for both phases, and if you want to double, then well, you're probably going to need a quicker post. Balthus does have a res stat with very high base HP, so he can definitely build more both defensive stats up. Luckily, he will have a wide selection of inheritable axes to choose from. For example, you can go with Deck Swapper for another solo playstyle. We have the Guard Axe, huge fan for cooldown, Barrier or Rear Guard for enemy phase. If you just want to smack arm units around, we have a good old Sling Hammer, and the regular Sling Axe works as well. From this past year, we had the Pelagian Axe, great for it with attack and defense menace. If you want to use the speed super boon, you can even get the Springy Axe for more attack and speed. For skills, Balthus can run Distant Counter with quicker post builds. You can run Lulls, Wrath, Special Spiral, Vantage. C skills could be things like Rouse Buffs, Oats, Times Pulse, or Joint Drives, whatever the usual you want to run. Then for Sacred Seals, we have many defensive options in Bonds, Forms, or Stances, and the new Steady Breath can be fun for a fat Ignis proc. Now, if you want to try and replicate gauntlets for Balthus, you can go with Ninja Masakari Plus. You don't necessarily have to go for quad attacks, but if you want to, then go right ahead with speed skills and the speed super boon. If you want to simulate Eviscerate from his Hero's Relic, then you could run Sorcery Blade for the adaptive damage memes. Really though, if you just run a Brave Axe with double Death Blow, and you can call it a day. All in all, Balthus isn't getting his fun gauntlets, but he'll be fine if you want to build him up. You can do all sorts of fun things with his stat spread. At the very least, his art is looking sharp, and all the Ashen Wolves are pretty fun characters. If you aren't summoning, you do get one free Balthus, and our next Grand Hero battle unit is going to be Elfric. He is also from Cindered Shadows and is sort of responsible for creating the Ashen Wolves. I hope you like red mages with no unique weapons, because we're getting another one for a third Grand Hero battle in a row, fifth one for 2021, and good god, I bet we're going to get another one within 3 months remaining. Anyway, good luck if you're summoning, and I'll see you soon.